Okay, cool. So we're going to get started. So the last talk is about bottlenecks in longevity and what you can do to break these bottlenecks and help accelerate progress in longevity. Okay, so let's get started. So a little bit about myself, just for those of you who don't know me. My name is Nathan. I'm the co-founder of the Longevity Biotech Fellowship. And this is a nonprofit basically dedicated to getting more people to work on the problem of aging, make career transitions. We are getting ready for our second cohort of our program. We're going to have a 3-day intensive intensive workshop retreat in the summer just outside of San Francisco to kick off our fellowship. And then we'll have like an online program which goes into deeper, basically different bottlenecks in the field, different ways that you can get involved, connecting with others, getting enough context that you can apply your skills and efforts towards longevity. And also I'm a co-founder of Vitalism. That's a longevity state project. I also do some venture capital on the side at HealthSpin Capital and a bunch of other small things. Okay, cool. But let's talk about what's on the agenda for today. So Less Death is kind of like the parent organization of the Longevity Biotech Fellowship. It's just one project that we have to try and accelerate progress in longevity. So that's fellowship program. You are right now doing the Longevity 0 to 1 course, and it's being recorded. And hopefully we're going to be able to put this on the internet and scale this to get more people educated about different topics in longevity and how they can have an impact as well on progress. And then what I'll be talking about today mostly is some results that we got from doing a industry expert survey of bottlenecks in the longevity field. So let's go. So the backstory basically was the first Less Death summer camp was back last year in July. And during the sort of like panel and discussions that we had there underneath like an incredible venue and with lots of interesting people, we came up with this idea to come up with a survey, basically trying to figure out what the major bottlenecks were in the field. The implementation of the actual questions and the survey and the analysis of the data was mostly done by Michael Florea and Patrick Siebold. And then also with Paul Murray helping with like visualization of the data. I mostly just was emotional support and also sending out the survey in my network and trying to get people to fill it out. But most of the lion's share was done by everybody else on the slide, and they did an amazing job. It was a huge effort, and I'll explain in a moment why it was such a huge effort. So the main goal was to try and figure out what the bottlenecks are in longevity. But this is not a trivial task. Basically, we wanted to find a way where we could just get the data in an unbiased manner, or at least as unbiased as we could, and not just like pick, just a couple, the most famous experts and have them tell you their pet, project or whatever, because that would be extremely biased. So we just decided, let's just ask them what they think the major bottlenecks are in the field and get their responses. And also we wanted to ask what they thought were potential solutions. And also we wanted to know basically of all the different interventions that are being developed in the longevity space, which ones did they think would have the highest impact or have the most promise? Okay, so of course there's a lot of caveats to the survey that we ended up doing and people filled out. So biases, you'll never fully remove those biases. A lot of people, especially when it's in academia or even in industry, have a very narrow range of expertise. So they'll only be able to comment on what they know, and they might not be able to really see the entire field for what it is. You have no idea how common this is. It's really crazy. And then another thing, predictions are hard. So trying to predict in the future which interventions are going to have the biggest impact, that can be very difficult. And especially if you look at like the field now compared to like 10 years ago, like what people were really interested in and hyped up about are completely different, obviously. And And then one thing that we wanted to do just for the first round of this survey was to just let people answer in their own words. So we wouldn't like pre-select too much stuff. And then, so it's very qualitative, some of the answers. Once we have a kind of sense of what sort of what categories people are writing down, in the next round of this survey, when we do it, we're going to try and do this annually. So I guess sometime later this year. After we have that all ironed out, we can be a little bit more quantitative. Okay, so in the spirit of not biasing people, I'm going to give you a modified interactive version of the survey that we gave all these industry experts in aging. We're going to try this out. I actually did not test this yet, so don't be mad if it doesn't work. But yeah, get your cameras out. There will be a QR code, and you will be able to participate. And we'll go through the questions one by one, and it will be fun, I guess. So yeah, let's try it out. So okay, try it out. Scan the QR code. Everyone's got the QR code. Yeah, cool. And as I cue through the slides, it will actually ask you the next question. So okay, yeah. So what country are you from? Curious. Whoa, yeah.
Where you live, or where you're born, or what your nationality is?
Let's just say, yeah, where you're mostly based. Let's say your base of operations, or mostly from. Yeah. So, okay, Germany, Russia. Okay, awesome. We have 19 responses. Okay, cool. This is working. This is so cool. I didn't even test this. Okay, cool. So we have a lot of people from Russia and United States, Germany. Okay, cool. China as well. Okay, so current position. So what are you doing right now? If you have multiple positions, I think you can choose more than one. Okay, we've got a lot of entrepreneurs. Yeah, of course, they would answer first. Very type A. Okay. Investors as well. Academia, they're just like, am I an academic? What is your definition of academic? Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm just going to wait till we get like 30-ish responses. Okay, so we have a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience. That's really cool. And investors, a bunch of other. Does anybody want to shout out what other you are? Because I'm curious what that is. Social entrepreneur, okay. Anything else? What else falls in that other category? Who are you? Designer. Okay, cool. Okay, let's continue. So lots of entrepreneurs, investors, data scientists. We actually have very few researchers here. Okay, interesting. Okay. Number of years of experience in aging and longevity. So for those of you who just walked in, you can scan this QR code and participate live in this modified version of the survey that we gave to 800 people. Okay, we have a lot of newcomers here, which makes sense. It's a 0 to 1 course, so that's what we would probably expect. Okay, so this one's going to be interesting. At current rates of progress, how many years of life do you think we will add to the average lifespan of generally healthy people in 5 years, assuming existing bottlenecks largely stay the same? Okay, so most people say about 1 to 5. Okay, cool. Okay, same question, but in 10 years from now, how many years of life do you think we'll add to the average lifespan of generally healthy people in 10 years, assuming that the bottlenecks are mostly the same? Yeah, what's up?
Globally?
Yes. Well, I guess basically for the people who will have these interventions, whatever we develop in the next 10 years. Okay, we've got 32 responses. Okay, so, also 5 years-ish. Okay, cool. Okay, and at current rates of progress, in 25 years, how many years do you think we'll add to average lifespan, assuming that existing bottlenecks are largely the same. What do you think? Okay, so yes, about 10 to 25. Okay, cool. Okay, assuming in continuous good health, how long do you want to live? Yeah, so you just type in a word, not a word. If it's a number, put in a number. Yeah, awesome. Forever in big green text. Say forever, right?
Okay.
Or type it. We'll accept typing. Heat death of the universe. Yeah, I see that one a lot in our applications for the Longevity Biotech Fellowship. That is also an acceptable answer for admission to our fellowship. Okay, infinity indeterminate. Someone found the infinity symbol. Great. And then someone put 100 to the power 690. Okay, a little pessimistic. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, great. Okay, so yeah, it looks like forever is the most common answer here, which is cool. Great. We see a couple hundreds, 120, 110. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's continue. Okay, and increasing investment or attention to which areas would benefit the aging field the most? If you're like a newcomer and you really have no idea, just say, I have no idea, because yeah, maybe. But if you are someone who is kind of like in the space or tangentially know it, or have sort of ideas from other spaces that you think could be really beneficial to progress in longevity, then yeah, give us your ideas too. Okay, technology development. Excellent. Good job, everyone. We're almost there. Okay. In your work in aging, okay, so assuming you are working in the field, what are the biggest bottlenecks you currently face? Be as specific as you can. So this is kind of like a free-form text answer, and we'll just get some of the lack of AGI. Okay, cool. Financing, procrastination. Wow. Okay, if we don't achieve longevity escape velocity due to YouTube and procrastination, I guess that's on us, right? Okay, funding and regulatory. Longevity researchers are not interested in life extension. Preclinical studies, okay, based on academic and in practice. AI safety anxiety and procrastination. Okay, I'm sensing a theme here. We should probably have a bonus session on procrastination, right? Maybe that's the biggest leverage we can have on the problem of aging. Okay, let's get a couple more answers in, please. More marketing to bring cash in from billionaires. Okay, I like that. Okay, cool. Lack of Zuzalus. Okay, very, very relevant. Okay, I like these. Okay, so the last part of this survey basically was trying to get a poll of experts, self-professed experts in the field, to sort of rank the different types of interventions for aging that we currently know of or people are working on in terms of which ones will have the largest impact. So this one's basically, which intervention do you think will or believe will increase the average lifespan the most in 5 years? And if you really don't know, you can just say, I don't work in aging. We're very new to the field, so you just have no idea. Because yeah, some of these you might not even know what they are.
What if it's something else?
There's other, yes. Okay, so partial reprogramming is same as somatic reprogramming. Okay, okay, cool. So the winner was genetic medicine and other, okay. Curious, what do you guys think is the other? Oh, we were looking for a specific intervention. Lifestyle, okay, yeah. I think we had one for dietary lifestyle, just dietary restriction or something. Okay, okay, so let's do the same thing for 10 years. What do you think? In 10 years, is it the same thing? Is it different? Other? There should be plasma and blood-based therapy. Okay, wow. Organ replacement for the win. I guess, just maybe one of the talks earlier today has influenced you. Partial reprogramming is semantic reprogramming. That's the wording they used in the survey, so I'm just trying to keep things consistent. Okay, one more second. Okay, so yeah, organ replacement is winning, and also gene therapies, genetic medicine. And the last one, in 25 years, what do you think is going to give us the most bang in lifespan? Okay, and now semantic reprogramming is, okay. So organ replacement, one for, yeah, in the next 10 years and 25 years. So that was basically a condensed version of a survey that we sent out. So yeah, basically we had a bunch of questions, some of them background. Then we basically had, the strategy was to go bottom up. So like figure out what people thought were the biggest bottlenecks. And then we asked them literally to just write as much as they could about like the potential solutions that they could come up with. And then top down, we also looked at like, okay, what if we choose the interventions? What do you think has the most impact? So analysis, if you're interested in this, yeah, it took a really long time to go through all this data because a lot of it was just like free-form text. We didn't want to bias people. So we wanted to categorize things for analysis afterwards. So Mark and Michael and Patrick basically did this really crazy process of reading everything, all the data, like from all, I think it was like 400 submissions, just multiple times, and then they would independently come up with different categories, then they would reconvene, and then decide whether they agreed with these categories, then they would actually create subtags for different categories, and then come back, and then yeah, try and agree on that, and then they would assign different categories and tags to the responses, right? And then if they had disputes about which responses fit with which tags, then they would, yeah, they would resolve it with the third person. Yeah, it was like extremely labor intensive. And you would think, oh, can't we just use AI to solve this? But yeah, I think it was just like so specific, and there's just so much context that you need to understand to be able to categorize this stuff. It's not so easy as just like chopping everything up into tokens and then understanding exactly what they mean. And I guess this was technically before ChatGPT was released. So that might change things in the future.
How many people you get? How many?
Yeah, so it's right here. So 1,000 people we sent out the survey to, mostly personal networks of Michael Florea, who is at Harvard, Amy Wager's lab, myself, and Mark Hamalainen, my co-founder at Longevity Biotech Fellowship. We had 800 people start the survey. 400 people completely finished it, so that's 50% completion rate. Almost 50% people filled it out, which is actually pretty high as far as surveys go. It wasn't a short survey; it was medium length. So yeah, and in terms of who we ended up polling or who actually completed the survey, we had a lot of academic researchers. So that was kind of like the bias there, but we had a lot of industrial researchers as well, data scientists, and then entrepreneurs. Yeah, and then some principal investigators or professors. And then in terms of years of experience, it was very mixed, which was actually really good. That's what we wanted, because we don't want to just get bias from any just people who have been in the field for a really long time, because they will have a different perspective on things compared to people who are new to the field. And sometimes you need fresh perspectives to catalyze things. Okay, so what did the experts or the people working in the field, the people working in aging and longevity, what did they think we needed more of? So we came up with, yeah, so they ended up selecting big data collection as the number one, and then academic research, so still very much on the basic science, and then some commercialization, clinical translation, and of course regulatory reform and stuff like that. So that's yeah. So that's what the experts thought. Okay, let's continue. So yeah, basically, this is where the analysis comes in. So the team, Mark and Michael and Patrick, basically read through all the responses and came up with these categories. And within each category, they had these subcategories, which they described as tags, and there could be multiple tags for each response. And basically, the size of these circles is proportional to the number of responses for that particular category or tag. So for the most part, the biggest big category for bottlenecks actually was tools. So people think that we need better tools to do biology, both research, but also in physically doing let's say models. So Alexandra talked about this a little bit yesterday. So basically, yeah, models are too slow or expensive. We don't have enough public data sets. That was also a common theme, and lack of predictive models. Okay, and then actually second was community, which was pretty interesting observation here, data result. So the biggest part of community, or at least the subcategory in community in terms of bottlenecks, was siloing and secrecy. So there's all this data or all these experiments that are being done, but maybe are not published. Certain research groups don't publish their results. I guess that also negative results is included in that, right? So yeah, people are working on things, but they're not telling each other about it, and that can be a problem. And of course, reproducibility crisis, which we talked about earlier. Yeah, and networking as well. That's pretty interesting. Okay, and then in terms of just basic science, yeah, the biggest one by far was validated biomarkers. And I think that's something that a lot of people in the field have been talking about since forever. So that's not much of a surprise. Yeah, but then another thing is aging omics characterization. So I think one of the common sentiments that I hear in the aging field is okay, for instance, hallmarks of aging, right? We have these 9 hallmarks. If you read the original 2013 paper, it's very sparse in terms of quantitative measures of any of these things. They're all very just general, right? Yeah, so I think that's something that people are thinking about. And then funding, yeah, overall lack of funding, and then that affects both people in academia, but we also heard that a lot from entrepreneurs, right? So that makes a lot of sense, because a lot of the time, if you're a PI or if you're a CEO of a company, your main job is probably the fundraising, getting money, or getting grants to do your work. And then people, one thing that was mentioned was lack of career or education paths. So even when you're thinking about aging as a discipline, there's not you can't. There's not a lot of undergraduate streams for aging biology, right? It's usually just more of a specialization in your PhD. So there's not that much exposure or much of a career path early on for people who are interested in aging or want to become aware of it even. And then, yeah, and then there's other things about the public being misinformed and translation gap. Yeah, basically, how do you take the science to actually try this stuff in humans? And then, yeah, lack of regulatory paths. Okay, so those are the bottlenecks that the experts came up with. And here are some of the solutions that they came up with as well. And by far, the biggest one in terms of tools was public data sets. So this is surprising. I didn't think that, I was surprised by that answer. So that's something that people in this room could probably think about. Yeah, so let's continue, because I think, okay, so basically comparing the bottlenecks, right? So here are all the different bottlenecks that people were coming up with, the subtags, the very specific things that the experts thought were the biggest bottlenecks, and then the solutions, the different subcategories of solutions, the ones that most people thought were going to have the biggest impact. So yeah, public data sets, regulatory path, more funding, validated biomarkers. I think those are the top 4. Okay, cool. So that's all the data that we're having. Yeah, so going back to the question where we asked, at current rates of progress, how many years do you think we'll add after 5 years of progress, 10 years, 25 years, assuming that the bottlenecks that, whatever bottlenecks exist right now or largely stay the same. So the experts, okay, so for 5 years, thought that we would probably only add about 2 years of average lifespan. For 10 years from now, they thought we would only add 5.8. And then for 25 years, That's 18.2. So if you divide those numbers, right, all of them are less than 1. So basically they're saying that they don't think longevity escape velocity is going to happen because we're not actually adding enough years of lifespan for per year that progresses. So you want to add at least 1 year for every year that passes of progress or research, right? And so that's kind of a pessimistic view, and I think that that is pretty common. And then in terms of assuming continuous good health, how long would you want to live? This is pretty interesting because we had about 40% of people say indefinitely. So I was surprised by that. I thought it would be a little bit lower, but so a lot of people also said things like until X event. So they wanted to see some personal milestone or something like that, or the heat death of the universe, I guess. And and as long as healthy. Okay. Yeah, cool. Okay, so now let's talk about interventions. Okay, so this is a huge data dump on you guys. I'm gonna try and explain. I didn't make these slides, by the way. But basically, this was the question about which interventions did the experts think would have the greatest impact. But basically, over here, we have in the next 5 years, and here are all the different interventions, and these are the number of years added to lifespan that they think these interventions would give. So they actually, when I asked you guys, I just asked you to rank which one you thought had the most, but in the original survey, we actually went through, we asked them which interventions they would like to evaluate, whether they were an expert in them or not, and then if they wanted to evaluate the intervention, then we asked them how many years do they think it will add to lifespan within 5 years, or in the next 10 years, or in the next 25 years, okay? So that was basically what we did in the survey. I didn't ask that here because it would just take too long. Some main takeaways from this question in the survey was that actually the responses from self-identified experts and experts, or non-experts, self-identified non-experts, and expert was defined as you've been working in this full-time for a number of years and can give a 1-hour presentation without any preparation on this subject, okay? So actually the responses were very similar. So it seemed there was not much difference in terms of experts versus non-experts, which was surprising. In the in terms of skepticism, the ones that that seem to have the lowest impact interventions, sirtuins, NAD, microbiome, apparently not getting much love. You can speculate on why that might be. We didn't ask. But then in terms of, 5 years, most people thought rapamycin was going to be the one that had the most impact. In 10 years, it was kind of a toss-up. Nothing really stood out. But interestingly, in 25 years, the main interventions that people are placing their bets on are replacement. So that's organ replacement, gene therapy or genetic medicine, and reprogramming. Okay, and the only intervention that people thought would actually result in longevity escape velocity, so actually adding more years to average lifespan than it would take to develop, was replacement, organ replacement. So that was pretty interesting. Okay, but genetic medicine and reprogramming were close in second. Okay, so what does this all mean? So here's an interpretation. This was Michael's take on all this data. He basically looked at all these bottlenecks and all these solutions and tried to think, okay, what is the common theme here? We have some people saying that there's not enough funding. Some people say we need more public data sets. Some people said, the models that we have for aging are bad, or the theories, the mechanisms of aging that we have for a theoretical basis are not good. We don't have any consensus on what aging is. So actually, Michael's take on all of this was that we're all kind of looking at the problem or like an elephant, like blind people looking at different parts of the elephant. But the main thing that he saw, and this is his biased take, was that we need to shift more to a data first type of science. So one of the submissions for the Bottlenecks survey, because they could write freeform, right, was basically that they thought the biggest bottleneck was that just most of the science that we're doing right now is very artisanal. So I'll just read it here. So it's very manual, right? So artisanal science institutions. Why? R&D is mostly still done following century-old methods of manual labor and hypothesis and publications ridden with narrative fallacy. Our institutions and funding are set up to maintain it in this way. We need to switch to automation, massive empirical data collection, and computational modeling. So that was his interpretation of all these things. And you can imagine, right? Like, so when I look at it, it kind of makes sense. Whenever you're looking at like biotech accelerators and stuff like that, they're extremely like labor intensive, and that's why we can't fund biotech startups in the same way that we fund tech startups. And automation and doing things in a more hypothesis-free way with big data could potentially be a solution to this. And would also be a potential solution to all these different sort of more like hypothesis-driven, we need to know what aging is kind of problems. Okay, so let's round it out. Overall takeaways. What do people in aging want? They want data. They want public databases and standards for biomarkers. So on the biomarker front, the survey was taken before the Aging Biomarkers Consortium that Madi Mokri launched with Vadim Gladyshev and Vittorio Sebastiano at Stanford. So there are people trying to come to grips with this and organize on getting solving the biomarker problem. But Mark thinks that people are pretty optimistic about our rate of progress. So even if it's not longevity escape velocity, there was still a moderate amount of lifespan extension. I think Mark's view of this is that we'll have much less progress. And then, high impact approaches. It seems like people really like replacement, which is kind of ironic because very few people work on that, right? And it's not really funded by any comparable measure, compared to like gene therapy or even like reprogramming, let's say. And then low impact approaches, apparently sirtuins, NAD, metformin, that kind of stuff. Okay, that's not surprising.
They watched it.
Okay, so here's some of the actionable technical steps that Michael suggested. So some of them range from consortiums on different problems like aging definitions, data standard protocols. I think Keith talked about some of this, and they're working on developing those. One thing that was interesting that maybe some of you guys in the audience could create if you're more tech-minded is a field-wide progress dashboard. So scientists are just completely inundated by like lots of different research papers all the time. They're really hyper-focused on their specific research because they need to publish, et cetera, and they don't really know what's going on in the rest of the field. So actually, Michael, highlighted this as one of the things that would be really useful for people working in this field. More data sets, biobanks for aged animal tissue and human tissue. So those are things that maybe are lower hanging fruit that we could possibly do. Accessible longevity educational programs. That's what we're trying to do here. So those are some things, his opinion of what we could do immediately, and some things that would be harder to do later. But non-technical ways to help. So if you're not, building in this space in particular, or don't want to become a researcher or anything like that, you can invest, obviously, but advocacy is huge, right? Trying to get people more aware of this industry, change attitudes around aging. And then policy, there's an organization, A4LI, which works in the US to specifically lobby on behalf of the longevity industry and, I guess, progress in aging. And yeah, you can donate to different nonprofits. I think they would really appreciate it, especially, yeah, us. Yes, hold on. Just about done. Yeah, we're almost done. So, okay. So next steps. Basically, what are we going to do with this survey? We're going to do it again. We're going to put all the data from the original survey, asking the experts, on a live website so that people can look through it. All the data is anonymized, and we have the consent for that. And I think we're going to try and write a paper also on that, on the results of the analysis. And yeah, and then we want to break these bottlenecks, right? So now that we've identified some of these bottlenecks, they may or may not be the ones, like the true bottlenecks that we need to address, but at least we have some data. It's better than no plan. Like a bad plan is better than no plan. So I think these are at least a good try to try and break. So if you're interested in breaking bottlenecks with us, definitely join us for LBF. We're going to announce applications for a second cohort soon. So you can go to longbiofellowship.org and join our waitlist. Yeah, the summer camp will be in July 19th, and then the online program will follow shortly. Okay, cool. So that kind of rounds it out. The last thing I wanted to do is basically ask you guys, okay, what can you do to have the biggest positive impact on longevity? So I want people to get in groups of 4 and sort of discuss what you think you can do to actually affect progress on aging and extending human lifespan. And then afterwards, we'll kind of like, we'll get some of your answers. And then, yeah. Okay, so here are some bottlenecks that you can take a look at, and maybe this will inspire you on solutions that you can personally develop. Okay, so get to work. What are you guys doing? Okay, and if you have questions, yeah, are there any like pressing questions? Okay, yes.
How can I actually explain? Are you trying? Is on
Yes.
or it's
Yes. Okay, so maybe I'll make a more structured plug for LBF. So yeah, Longevity Biotech Fellowship, which Mark and I co-founded, is a nonprofit program where we're basically trying to help people find the ways that they can have the most impact on longevity, lifespan extension, not just health span, but also healthy lifespan extension, maximum lifespan. So we were really inspired by 80,000 hours. Does anybody know what that is? Yeah, it's kind of like an effective altruism organization, which is basically the same thing, but we're applying it specifically to longevity, which you could argue is one of the most altruistic things that you could do. So we're, yeah, basically trying to find ways to bring people in, give them context on, what is the state of the field, what are the bottlenecks, what are the potential people you could work with. And it's also an online community, so we have quite a few people in there who have found many different ways to collaborate with each other, either by like forming new organizations, founding new companies, or joining companies, early stage companies as an employee or whatever, investments as well. And yeah, so basically, as I said before, we start off with a intensive workshop retreat, not a radicalization camp, okay? It's a workshop retreat where we have like a lot of, experts and mentors come in, and we have these like parallel sessions, which are really intimate in like a really cool venue. Yeah, and getting advice from them, mentorship. And then we move on to a sort of online community and program, which lasts for 12 weeks. This iteration that we're going through, we're going to really focus on having people create like a personal plan for their career and how they're actually going to implement it to become, actually a builder in this space and actually affecting progress. It's going to be sort of like a personal demo day that you will present at the end of the 12 weeks. You don't have to like solve aging by the end of the 12 weeks, but you should be directionally have achieved something. And it could be something as small as just like writing 10 blog posts about aging and learning about it in some specific way, or like reaching out to 20 different companies and asking them if you can intern for them or something like that. So we really want people to be motivated to actually tackle this problem instead of just sitting on the sidelines and saying, I don't really know what to do. Well, we can try and help you, but you have to be like motivated, passionate, and philosophically aligned with what we're trying to do. Okay, cool. Yeah, any words from Cat?
What I want to say about like this course. So first I want to point out that even though like people is kind of low on the slide of bottleneck, like every problem is kind of implicitly a people problem, right? Because if you had more people, they would work on better models. If you had more people, they would work on better funding. And so, I mean, that's why we created this course. And the original intention of this course, right, we wanted to put it online, publicly available to everyone, like in the most accessible way, like anyone can watch it. We know there are several other courses, and as we work on this, like our friends keep sending us, like, look, the Buck Institute has another course, but really, like, no, like we haven't really followed anything that's really as radical and as extensive about the non-science aspect of this industry. You know, like this is the only place you can go to get a talk about like different models and what are the bottlenecks to like having better, less expensive models. Anyway, and so our plan after this, we will put the recordings here online, and then in a few months we'll get more feedback, and we plan to make a better quality version of the course, like much higher quality than masterclass quality, such that is, because these things matter. Like people watch something, it's pleasant to watch, they keep watching it. We want them to binge it like through a weekend, and so one thing that we do need for it is funding. We haven't really talked about this at all, like the next step yet, but we know that we will need some funding because to produce something with such high production quality, you need to compensate your speakers, you need to coach them, you need to invest a lot in equipment and so on, and we're really not paying anything, not paying ourselves anything for these. So if you want to help, or if you want to support us with funding, please reach out.